I'm Randy Horwitz, like Alex said, and a senior technical staff member at IBM. I did want to point out a little bit of IBM's history here on this slide on purpose. I was going through our archives, the Slack ones, not the real ones, and found this Selectric typewriter, which is actually producing Braille, I don't know, back in the 60s. So inclusivity and things like that have long been important to IBM, and we hired our first disabled person in 1914. So well over 100 years ago, well before the ADA and things along those lines.
Slide 2 dash my back.
So I guess I will still give a little bit of info about my background here. So yep, I've been at IBM for 25 years. Sometimes that feels like a really long time, and sometimes that feels like a really short time. I've worked in many areas, HR, research, and now in CIO, where, as Alex said, I'm working on our Learning from Incidents program. I actually worked with David Lee, and now I've taken that over. Some of you know David. And one of the things we've done is extend our Learning from Incidents program in 2024 to look across all of our quarter ends. So quarter end is a big time at IBM in a lot of places because quarter end is when we announce what we made to Wall Street, which is sort of a big deal. If money is an important article to you and we still need to pay the mortgage, so quarter end is kind of a big deal. And so kind of extended things to look across quarter end and see what themes and patterns and things like that we could work through. So in fact, I think I just got ahead of myself. So we'll go ahead to the next slide.
Slide 4 dash different perspectives.
And this is what, okay, so that's fine. So let's talk about different perspectives for a little bit. So us visually impaired folks, we adapt. We were just talking about adaptation all the time, right? And you get different perspectives for free from us and on diverse teams because this just in, it's a sighted world, folks. I don't say that to be difficult, it's just a fact. So when you grow up as a visually impaired or blind person, you grow up adapting. You get white canes, you get guide dogs, you do all that sort of thing. So because we do well in audio multitasking and stuff like that, it's really cool to have us on incident teams because we can read all kinds of different voice cues, things along that. We just, quote, see things differently. So that's one of the things that you kind of get for free, having us be part of a diverse team. But so.
Slide 5 dash what we'll talk about.
Okay, so what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about interacting with the computer, the thing in front of me, from an input and an output perspective. Then we're going to talk about improving communications. And this is not just between human being to human being, that's important, but also between the technologies and human beings, in this case, incident responders. So if you don't take anything else away today from what we're going to talk about, keep this idea in mind of altering our communications. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. I have some demos for you. I have other things like that that we'll kind of go through where you can see how all of these things work together.
Slide 6 dash interacting with the.
Okay, so interacting with the computer input-wise. So touch typing, I certainly do a lot of touch typing, sometimes more accurately than others. Way back in the 1980s on a typewriter, it wasn't an IBM at the time, sorry IBM, my Braille teacher made me learn touch typing on cassette. I'm giving some of my age away. Well, I didn't type on the cassettes, but I was learning from the cassettes. I can still quote some of the things I had to type over and over and over. And I hated the woman for it. You can ask me afterwards what some of the phrases were. I hated the woman for it, but it's one of the best gifts she actually gave me was learning to touch type at an early age. Certainly, I use voice input, typically in Slacks from my mobile device. And but touch typing is kind of a big key. So guess what? It's also about keyboard alternative, folks. Not a big surprise. We're more efficient when we keep our hands on the keyboard A. And I've had some interesting theories brought to me over the years. I should do a blog post on this. I've had one person ask me one time, do you just guess where to put the mouse on the screen? Interesting. But no, it's all about keyboard and the keyboard equivalents. And that'll be happening in some of our demonstrations here in a little bit. So let's advance our slide. Okay. So let's talk about output. Let's talk about screen readers. So screen readers, this is probably not a politically correct term, but I'm going to use it. Essentially, it's an application that spies on the other applications, be they desktops or web pages or stuff like that. Typically, that's through APIs or the DOM. But for screen readers to work well for end users, there must be communication between said applications and said screen reader. I used to show a chart that had these puzzle pieces, and if the puzzle pieces were connected, then things were talking. If they weren't connected, then nothing was talking. And if a screen reader can't figure out what's going on the screen, it either says nothing or it guesses what's going on. And guessing what's going on can be an interesting thing, but it's probably not ideal, is it? So that's kind of how screen readers work. And they have voice output, you're hearing some of that, and then Braille output, which we'll get to here momentarily.
Slide 8 interacting with the computer and get demo.
Okay, we have a demo. Had a little bit of computer weirdness here, so hopefully I can switch to find that, or I can get some help from somebody to get me there. You can turn the audio up, perhaps. I'm using a screen reader to give me the output. For this particular demo, we'll be using the terminal. I'm a Windows user, so for this particular demo, I will be using this.
Task switching, Cisco Webex, Windows PowerShell.
Windows PowerShell. Windows PowerShell works a little bit better than Git Bash does with screen readers, which is why I use it. Again, that gets back to providing the proper information. And the proper information is provided by the screen reader. As for the input, I will be touch typing. I do not have every single character of my input echoed back to me because I find that tiresome. I can check the input if I need to with a Braille display. I'll be getting to a Braille display demo here in a little bit, but figured the terminal was a good demo thing since this is for all of us SREs. So what I do in my day job is I have to write a lot of incident reports. So on the current branch I'm on, I've gone ahead and created a new file. At least I think I have. Let's see what git status tells us. All right.
Fit : the term fit is not recognized as the name of a complete function, script file, or operable program. Check the spelling of the...
So I purposely did that, well, on purpose. I typed fit, it turns out. So, that was a mistake. So I wanted to show you that that's also something that happens. So let's go ahead, arrow up.
PSC : back.
And I can go ahead and move to the beginning of the line. You'll hear me arrow left.
SUTATS space TI.
Okay.
F.
So now we'll type git status.
On branch demo, your branch is up to date with origin/demo. Untracked files : left parent use git add less file greater ... to include in what will be committed right parent demo /report synopsis.md. Nothing added to commit but untracked.
Okay. So now I will have to do a git add. And I'll be a little bit lazy here and just do demo /star. Since as we know, Git remembers where I am. Let's see how that worked out for us.
PSC : /.
Okay. Getting the prompt again. I'm silencing the prompt because it's a very long, and that's something I typically do. I silence with the control key. Every screen reader has a silencer key. A git status.
On branch demo, your branch is up to date with origin/demo. Changes to be committed : left parent use git restore -- staged less file greater ... to unstage right parent new file : demo /report synopsis.md PSC : /users /101 mil.
Okay, that's fabulous. So we have added it successfully. Now we'll go ahead and do a commit. I'm touch typing here as I mentioned. So git commit -m. And then we'll go ahead and have report update. Let's see how that turned out.
Left bracket demo 34/17/12 right bracket report update. 1 file changed. 5 insertions left parent plus right parent. Create mode 100644 demo /report synopsis.md PSC : /.
Great. Now, because I'm a little paranoid, one more git status.
On branch demo, your branch is ahead of origin/demo by 1 commit. Left parent use quote git push quote to publish your local commits. Right parent, nothing to commit. Working tree clean. PSC
Great. And I know I'm on my demo branch, so I'm not pushing to main or master if you're old school. So let's go ahead and do a git push.
Enter pin for YubiKey PIV number 156264.
Now I have a hardware security key, so we hear I'm being prompted. I will type that in.
Enumerating objects: (6). Done. Counting objects: 100%. Left parent 6/6. Right parent. Done. Delta compression using up to 8 threads. Compressing objects: 100%. Left parent 4/4. Right parent. Done. Writing objects: 100%. Left parent 4/4. Right parent. 400 bytes vertical bar 400.00 KB/S. Done. Total 4. Left parent delta 1. Right parent. Reused 0. Left parent delta 0. Right parent. Pack dash reused 0.
Okay. I've heard enough of that to know that my push was successful. So that's great. And that concludes our first screen reader demo. Okay, let me chat without showing you one. I can show the slide in a little bit. And Alex, maybe you can work your way back up here and we can play the second demo. So another way of doing output, and I'll be showing here, is a Braille display. I'm using one here in front of me that allows me to see the screen in Braille.
Home recent media. Open file. Left parent as right parent. Split button. Menu will allow for opening of media.
Our next demo will take us to a Braille display.
Not selected 02 Randy dash demo dash Braille.mp4. Not play button. Alt followed by P.
Okay. So a Braille display, as you'll see, it is another way of the screen reader handle output. In fact, maybe I'll just pick the Braille display up and wave it at you, hopefully without throwing it across the room. Here it is. It shows 40 cells. There's also a picture of it that you'll see. It does 40 characters at a time. It is super useful for techie kind of stuff, like coding and stuff like that. I wouldn't have made it through a Lisp course in college without being able to listen to it in Braille. Just imagine listening to all those parentheses. If you're old enough to remember Lisp. If you don't remember Lisp, you're probably more lucky, in all honesty. Let's go ahead and watch this next demo.
Pause button.
I wanted to get a little bit more technical. So you'll be seeing a lot of my hands for this video, both on my keyboard here, just a standard QWERTY keyboard, and on my Braille display over here. The Braille display actually outputs the same thing the screen reader is outputting in speech as Braille. And that's important when we're doing technical kind of work, or for a lot of things, but mostly for technical kind of work like coding. So let's see where we are. We'll go with the audible features first. So I'll do a command.
Untitled -1 inclusive -3 EE 2023 Visual Studio Code application.
Okay, so we hear that I'm in Visual Studio Code, and before that you heard untitled, etc. So I'm in an untitled window. That's cool. Well, I don't want to be in an untitled window. I want to save my playbook. I'm going to be doing an SRE playbook here, or at least part of one. So we talked about shortcut keys. Let's do a Control S for save.
Save as dialog. File name : edit combo. Untitled -1.txt.
See here, untitled -1. That's not what I want. I want playbook .yml. Now let me check that in Braille. Is that really what I typed? Yep, looks like it. Playbook.yml. Let's tab.
Save as type : combo box. Plain text left pair.
I don't want to save it as plain text, certainly, so I'll type Y to get us down toward the Y's and then hit a down arrow.
YAML left parent star.yml semicolon star.aml semicolon star.aml semicolon.
I can switch back to Braille to check it myself. Yep, that looks right. Let's tab again.
Toolbar, hide folders button, save button, Alt+S.
So now we're over, excuse me.
Playbook.yml, confirm save as dialog, no button, Alt+N.
So what happened?
Playbook.yml already exists. Do you want to replace it?
So it already exists. I asked the screen reader to tell me
button.
that. And yes, I'll replace it.
-1
because I want to start with a blank slate here. Plus it was another excuse to show you a screen reader thing. So now we're here. We are, where are we? Let's double check that again.
Playbook.yml -inclusive
Playbook.yml, etc. So let's start typing. Dash at the beginning. Then I'll start typing a name : Looks okay so far Braille-wise. I'll come back and do a complete check here in Braille in a little bit. So we'll call it default web update. And on the next line, I'll do a hosts, web servers. Check that, hosts, web servers. And then we'll do a default underscore user underscore name of root. So does that look okay? Braille, yep, seems to. So let's go back to the top with another shortcut key, Control plus Home. Can't remember what it is on Mac, but there is one.
Dash, dash, dash.
So I hear dash, dash, dash. I'm at the top. So now I'll go ahead and review what I've got using my Braille display to read me line by line. And I see name, default web updates. That looks okay. Then, oh, geez. I forgot to indent this, didn't I? And that's really important in YAML, or certainly in this particular playbook case, to be more clear. So I'll add 2 spaces here. Okay, I can see now that I'm 2 spaces further in. Same issue on the next line. So I'll go to the beginning of the line, add 2 more spaces, and here we are. I'll start at the top.
Dash, dash, dash.
And I can hear dash, dash, dash. Then I've got name, default web updates, yep, and then indented this time, hosts, web servers, and default username root. I don't need to show you more than that. Oh, and of course, I should make sure that I save this guy again. I just did a Control S, and it just did that. In case you want to hear what this a little bit of this sounds like.
Dash, dash, dash.
We hear dash, dash, dash.
Dash name, default web updates. Host, web servers. Default underline user underline name,
And you just heard all of that, which is good, except I left out the end of the default username line here. But yeah, that's how everything works. That's how a Braille display works. And I've also been able to show you the importance of Visual Studio Code actually being able to communicate properly with the screen reader, like when you heard it read the save dialog. So that's great.
Play button, Alt followed by P.
Apparently we made it back to the play button. That's useful. All right, let me see if I can get us
Demos
back to
dash
our...
file slide.
It's all about adaptation, right, folks?
Slide 6 dash. Slide 8. Slide 9.
This is more fun.
Slide 11 dash improving communication.
Okay, so let's talk about improving. Let's talk about improving communications a little bit, shall we? That is why we're here, after all. Even if I couldn't manage to communicate with the screen reader there for a little bit. So for communication with blind and visually impaired SREs, it's all about altering your communication style. Not a huge amount, but enough. So even if the screen reader has the information it needs, or at least if it's being sent the information, does it really provide useful output? That's really the important question. So in fact, let me tell you a story. In the days of yore, known as about 10 years ago, or maybe 15 years ago, there used to be this tool called Bobby. And it was a test tool that made sure that you were communicating, at least from your web page at the time, or application to a screen reader. Which is good. I'm not saying testing tools are not good, but it also created some fascinating web pages because there wasn't user involvement and screen reader involvement. If you're familiar with providing alternative text, a lot of people just put alt text. So every damn image on the page said alt text. Didn't say, I'm not kidding. It didn't say, you know, picture of Robert Barron or something like that. It said alt text. And everybody went around, our pages are Bobby approved, they're awesome. Yes, but you can't read a goddamn thing on them, but yeah, they're awesome. It just underscores the importance of making sure to do screen reader and end user testing. So there's my little Bobby approved.
Slide 12 dash dash.
As I said, I'm not opposed to testing tools like that, but it is an important point to make. All right, so let's talk about screen shares. Let's talk about crawling together. So if you're on a screen share with somebody, slides still okay? All right, if you're on a screen share with somebody, here's a good thing to say. It looks like the database is having an issue. Let me paste what's going on into the chat, the error. That's the good example. The bad example is it looks like the database is having an error. I have it here on the screen. Okay, that's cool. Screen readers don't work well with screen shares. It's on the screen. What the hell's the error? So a lot of people prefer this, as I understand, in Slack anyway, because then you can go Google the error. You can just grab it directly. As for screenshots, easy for me to say, make sure to describe what's in your screenshot. So that's important to describe kind of what's in your screenshot, or better yet, to paste text in. You can do OCR on screenshots nowadays, but OCR is still OCR, so better to just explain it. And then don't forget about the reverse accessibility problem, as we've turned it on some of our teams. Another true story, I've got a lot of them. I once delivered some accessibility techniques to my lead for review, and the color of the background and the foreground were exactly the same. Worked great with the screen reader. And we got into this 5-minute argument. There's nothing on the page. Finally, she looked at the source and figured it out. But I don't just get to sit up here and make demands about how we all need to alter our communication styles. If I mess something up, tell me. And for the love of God, if the camera is pointed up my nose, please tell me that too. Another true story.
Slide 13. Slide 13 dash do not use color alone.
Okay, do not use color alone. You just heard that announced. So is using color bad? Well, no, of course not. But using color alone to convey information is bad, because if you make use of color alone, then not everybody can tell there's errors on your dashboards. We'll have a live example here in the middle in a little bit. But using an alternative or something like that makes things workable. That's more like we're walking together. And by the way, I forget the exact stats, but 10% of dudes across the world are red-green colorblind. So if you do stuff red-green, it's not just for us screen reader folks up here. It has a large effect, and there's a bunch of other colorblind stats that I can't remember at the moment.
Slide 14 dash server list.
Okay, here is a bad server list example. I'm going to do a bit of a live demo here.
2 columns and 4 rows.
Okay, so what are the columns in our table here? Is the audio loud enough? Do we need to raise the audio a little bit? Let's see.
Server status, column 2.
So we have
server name, column 1.
Thank you for raising the audio. Server name and server status. So let's go down here.
Node1.app1.imp.com, row 2.
Node1.something.whatever. I can also read it on the Braille display.
Server status, blank, column 2.
Server status is blank. That's cool. I'm not sure what the hell I'm supposed to do with it, but
server name,
it's cool. Then we'll go down to the next one.
Node2.app1.imp.com, server status, blank, column 2.
I think you get the point. Fortunately, this isn't really a hard fix, folks.
Slide 15 dash.
If we want to walk together.
Slide.
So here's the better example. I'll move down to the table.
2 columns and 4 rows. Table 9, column 1.
I don't know why this is labeled table 9, but it's really not important for this demo, so just ignore that. I'm sure table 9 is a wonderful number. So, and we've stopped reading for me. That's awesome.
PowerPoint slide.
Okay, let's try that again.
Server names, node1.app1.imp.com.
Okay.
Server status, exclaim, column 2.
See the difference?
Server name, node1.app1.imp.com, column 1. Server status, exclaim.
So server node1.whatever, that's the one that's broke. Of course, you'd have to talk to your user and say we're going to use the exclamation point, but it's an example I've used for years. So now if I'm an SRE, I can go look at node 1 and figure out what's going on with it. Pretty cool stuff, huh? And this one ain't that hard. Don't worry, we'll get to some of the stuff that's a little bit harder. But
slide 16 dash tooling issue examples.
Okay, speaking of what's harder, let's talk about graphs. We like graphs, right? We like graphs on our dashboards. However, to a screen reader user, a graph, well, if you're trying to explain a graph to a screen reader, please describe a bunch of lines and some points on the lines. Go. No context, no nothing, just a drawing. Well, what's your problem? You can't describe that? Right, that's it. So I'm not saying not to use graphs, but graphs like this one that we have on the screen here, that's showing a series, right? And we have some spikes every once in a while. Well, I wouldn't be able to see that at all. Hear it, see it. See it is the better. We kind of prefer to use the vernacular. I think it's kind of funny when somebody kind of stumbles over themselves. Did you see the game last night? Oh, I mean, hear the game? The normal vernacular is fine. So
slide 17 dash tooling dash.
Here is another one. here's another friendly graph example. So in this one, we can see that there's a high spike. So there's some spikes, but then we have a high spike going on. But
Slide 18-tooling issue examples.
okay,
Issue.
so what are we going to do about all this, Randy? You're just giving me problems. You're telling me that graphs are an issue. You know, what's the deal here? Fortunately, there are some solutions. So what we could do is make sure that all the information is available, easy for me to say, available in a tabular format or downloadable, right? Got to make sure you can get at the data somewhere. I kind of like downloadable because then I can do some manipulation with it. But it's still a pretty heavy cognitive load, isn't it? If you're listening for spikes, you listen across the line, you know, is it 10, 10, 10, 20? Okay, well, that was 20, 10. Keeping track of all that can provide a heavier cognitive load. It's certainly better than nothing, but it can certainly provide a heavier cognitive load. So what would be cooler is to send a notification
Slide
like
19-19.
a notification that says, hey, Randy, there's an issue. Can you go have a look? Yeah, that was a bug I ended up finding here. Can you see it
Slide
now?
8 slide.
Let's try now.
Slide not slide.
Fine now? Okay. Well, yeah, I got it.
Slide 8 slide.
Good. Here's what works better. Just tell me where the issue is. Hey, Randy, go have a look at this. Robert helped me create this slide. So thanks for the help, Robert. Okay. So that's a better than, and that's less cognitive load than digging and digging and digging and digging and digging and digging.
Slide.
And digging. So some more graph examples that we have here, something that's a bit more advanced. We have an anomaly of a high and a wide spike. So when you're going through all that data and trying to listen to it, you're not only trying to figure out, you know, when things started and ended, but also how is it in relation to all the other spikes. And it's just, again, a super heavy cognitive load.
Slide 20-tooling issue.
Another one here. So in this one, we have some gaps. So, or at least one gap. So that's a gap issue. So something else that's kind of a heavy cognitive load to kind of keep track of. But
Slide 21-tooling solutions.
Okay, so let's talk about solutions. A decent tool should be able to go ahead and prioritize the information, package it up, and be able to produce a notification. And this is not just useful for us blind people, you know, the blind guy with the dog standing up here, but useful for all of us because it lessens all of our cognitive load. And this is the really benefit of a diverse team, right? So while an engineer might think it's okay to just go glance at the dashboard and glance at the dashboard 20 times, somebody on the team who wants a little bit better, somebody like me, could say, yeah, but wouldn't it be great if we could figure out how to package things up? This is us running together from an accessibility perspective. This is, remember that communication thing I talked about? This is kind of talking about these communication sort of issues. So this is an example of how we can learn together, and it lessens everybody's cognitive load. So we're doing this for the whole team. We're not doing things for those people. You can imagine what a big fan I am of those people, and it doesn't make sense to work that way. It's what is a good way to all work together. But
Slide 22-what if. Slide.
So what if you're not sure? What if you're not sure what to do? Do you just throw something together and hope it works? Of course not. You ask. We have conversations. As I said, this is two-way. You ask, I tell, I ask, you tell. We converse. We have conversations. And if you're not sure what to do, I wish I could find the video. Well, it was an old style movie thing. It was somebody wondering how to help a blind person across the street. And they see the blind person on the corner with their white cane. And there's like this vision that goes through this person's head. Should I pick the person up and firemen's carry them across the street? Should I throw them across the street? All these kind of cool, you just ask.
Slide 23-summary.
Summing up, and then I certainly hope you have some kind of questions. But from a crawl perspective, we bridge the gap using additional communication. Bridge the gap, I think I said that. We verbalize screen shares, we explain screenshots. But that's crawl. I mean, That's similar to stuff than me asking my social studies teacher back in high school to verbalize what's on the board. Interesting, but make data available, so do not use color alone. It's okay to use color, just don't use it alone. And then provide a way to download or tabularize graph material. Run is optimizing the data for all of us, not just visually impaired SREs like I have on here. Analyze, summarize, prioritize, other I's I can't think of on there. Yeah, do all these things. And of course, make sure it's available in a readable format. And if you're not sure what to do, don't be shy, ask. A few resources I wanted to share with you. The IBM.com accessibility page has a lot of neat resources on it. It also has an accessibility checker that you would use before the screen reader. So we have something like that. And then I have the latest web content accessibility guidelines. The web content accessibility guidelines provide a standard way of that communication between web pages and screen readers. And if you want to kick around a solution, if you have something you're not sure about, you know, I'm in the RSF Slack, I'm in the conference Slack, I still look at my emails. I guess I'm old enough to still do that. So I still look at my emails. You want to kick something around? Hit me up, please. As you can tell, I hate talking about this subject, so feel free to hit me up and we'll kind of kick it around. So, but
Slide 25.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you, Alex, for helping me recover from, I knew I shouldn't have, I should have left the laptop closed when we brought things up. Thank you for recovering from PowerPoint. Thanks for the help putting the slides together. Thanks to my wife, Tina, who's in the audience, who dealt with me stressing about this for the past week or two. And thanks to all of you for listening through, watching, listening to my chat. I hope you enjoyed it.